Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Ashwin Ganguly.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this opportunity to just make a few points. I'm glad that the Honorable Finance Minister and Minister of State both are here. The finance bills covers, Honorable Finance Minister, three important aspects: the economic survey, the 14th Finance Commission's recommendations, and the finance bill itself. The economic survey, especially volume 1, is a document marked by clarity. It is a forward-looking and provides a sense of confidence in the India growth story. However, overlooking some pitfalls or response to potential unanticipated events. The 14th Finance Commission's recommendations are significant reforms in sharing of revenue between the state and the center, reflecting the progressive maturity of the Indian state, and are being described as the hallmark of cooperative federalism. This coincides with the dismantling of the Planning Commission as an instrument for planned investment by the center and its replacement by the Niti Aayog. This shift is to acknowledge the larger role of the National Development Council, increase in share of allocation of revenues to the states, and gradual phasing out of centrally sponsored schemes. The budget for 2015 and 16, Mr. Chairman, was expected to be bold and dramatic, but I considered it to be the new normal in a modern sense of the term. Some features which the Honorable Finance Minister or the Minister of State may wish to clarify are as follows. The need to recognize the rise in prices of goods and services of daily domestic consumption, the housewife's dilemma. How to reconcile this dilemma with claims of drop in inflation could seem incredulous to the common person and may be explained in a layman's term when the Honorable Finance Minister gives a reply. The next is the instant opinion expressed by so-called experts and corporate chiefs, while the Honorable Finance Minister was still presenting the budget in the Lok Sabha on the 28th of February. These have become annual events and are not given much credence by people who listen to this instant wisdom, except possibly the media, who find the budget a bit complicated. The Finance Minister may kindly share with the House some fallback options if unanticipated but not unusual events were to occur. For example, the windfall gains from the fall in crude oil prices begin to gradually rise again, or the impact of the massive agricultural losses due to recent unseasonal and unexpected rains in North India, and the consequences of a possibly poor monsoon later this year on India's overall agriculture output and reduction in food stocks. While many aspects of the taxations are innovative, raising service tax from 12.36% to 14% escapes logic, I'm afraid. This is bound to have an impact on domestic consumption and may be a potential tipping point of the classic Lafarge curve. While there is an effort to rationalize corporate tax, the Finance Minister has once again resorted to the cess policy introduced by his illustrious predecessor to push up personal income tax. This is unfortunate and a bit retrograde. It would be of greater interest if the Finance Minister could share specific steps being proposed to increase the number of taxpayers, significantly improve the efficiency of tax collection, as well as the growth ambitions of the direct tax revenue, annual direct tax revenue, People need an answer at some point. The cess route is bound to become less and less productive sooner rather than later. The debate on black money must also include the massive generation of domestic black money as well. It's well known that huge amounts of black money is generated, for example, by the domestic real estate sector. So the urgency of addressing the challenge of black money is both international but national as well. The national issues of black money may be even larger and more challenging than getting black money back from abroad. The finance minister may kindly respond regarding the quantum and the steps the government proposes to take to expand the tax net during 2015-16 and certain specific steps to curb and gather more from the domestic black money. GST, as it is evolving, has slowly deteriorated as a result of multiple concessions and compromises for the sake of cooperative federalism. It has become the combination of an administrative nightmare and a compromise with individual states' demands. There is a growing impression that when GST is finally introduced, the prices of all goods of daily consumption may increase. The logic of keeping out petroleum product, liquor, real estate, and the cascading 1% every step tax are a bewildering omission. The finance minister, I'm sure, will enlighten us as may be appropriate. I now have a couple of words about the Reserve Bank of India. I would like the finance minister to kindly elaborate the so-called binding agreement between the Government of India and the Reserve Bank of India regarding quarterly inflation targets. Depending on the outcome, what will be the nature of actions in favor of or against the Reserve Bank of India? The plan to separate the government's debt management from the Reserve Bank of India is a major departure from a long-standing practice. What are the advantages of curtailing the role of the Reserve Bank of India? I would request the government not to interfere and try to change an institution which is considered the all-weather watchdog of India and has a shining history of performance. Please do not try to repair what is not broken. In order to ensure outcomes of cooperative federalism, there must be a monitoring mechanism for the macro oversight of the progress of projects and the utilization of the funds being devolved to states. The finance minister is to be complimented for the management of the current account deficit. There is, however, a fairly widespread apprehension that the key elements of welfare, such as farm subsidies, minimum support price, and other programs for the upliftment of the poor sections of our society, face significant cuts and setbacks as a consequence. For example, the allocation of 1% of GDP to health has remained unchanged for the past 10 years. One of the biggest sufferers in the area of postnatal care of mother and newborn infants, or rather the lack of it. The allocation for Anganwadis has been reduced from 18,000 crores to 9,000 crores. This will reduce the number of Anganwadi assistants massively and will harm this institution of great social impact. Similarly, the allocation of the midday meal scheme, as has been already mentioned, has been reduced from 13,000 crores to 7,000 crores, and this is a very unkind move. Where please restore it. Panchayats have been allocations have been damagingly curtailed. The allocations have also been reduced in many other vital sectors, affecting women, children, the garib and the ati garib. This may lead to severe unintended social consequences of cooperative federalism. Please revise the budget and make it a source of hope rather than an instrument of dashed hope. Reducing deficit is important, but helping the poor must remain the highest national compulsion. The social support program for over 600 million poor Indians must not be mindlessly diminished. Otherwise, history will judge the 2015-2016 budget, Mr. Chairman, as of the well-to-do, by the well-to-do, and for the well-to-do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me this opportunity.